My new stepmom stood in the doorway of my bedroom, sipping a green smoothie, and told me to pack my bags. She needed the space for her new content creation and yoga studio. My father stood right behind her, staring at the floor, too cowardly to look his own son in the eye as he kicked me out of my childhood home. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just smiled, grabbed a cardboard box, and started packing. Because what Chloe didn't know, and what my father had conveniently forgotten in his midlife crisis, was that I didn't need to fight them. I just needed to wait for them to say, "I do." She forgot to read my mother's will, and she didn't realize that the walls she was measuring for mirrors legally belonged to me. Let me set the stage. The house is a beautiful, sprawling, mid-century modern tucked into the hills. 4 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a wraparound deck. It wasn't bought by my father. It was bought by my mother. She was a brilliant corporate attorney. She was the breadwinner, the anchor, the soul of our family. When she died of breast cancer 4 years ago, the light went out of the house. My father didn't cope well. He drowned his grief in expensive cars and, eventually, in Chloe. Chloe is 26. I am 22. She is exactly the kind of woman who uses the word manifesting unironically, burns sage to cleanse toxic energy, and views me not as a stepson, but as a stubborn roommate who is ruining her aesthetic. The day she moved in, the erasure began. She took down my mother's paintings and replaced them with mass-produced minimalist art. She threw away the height chart in the kitchen where my mom had measured me every birthday. "It's just clutter, Ethan," Chloe said, rolling her eyes when I pulled the wooden trim out of the trash. "We are embracing a new chapter. You need to let go of the past." My dad let it happen. He was so terrified of losing his young, shiny new trophy that he became a ghost in his own life. He agreed with whatever she said. "She's bringing life back into the house, son," he mumbled one evening, refusing to make eye contact. The breaking point came 2 months before their wedding. I was finishing my senior year of college, working part-time and studying in my room, the large room at the end of the hall that used to be my mother's home office. Chloe walked in without knocking. "So," she said, leaning against the doorframe, "your dad and I were talking. We're going to be hosting a lot of retreats here after the wedding. I need this room. You're 22. It's time you launch. You have 30 days to find an apartment." I looked past her to my father, who was hovering in the hallway. "Dad?" I asked. "You're kicking me out? Rent in this city is $3,000 a month. I'm still in school." My father finally looked up, his face flushed. "Ethan, you're a man now. Chloe and I need our space to start our family. It's our house. You need to respect that." Our house. The words hung in the air. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll pack." Chloe smirked, a triumphant, vicious little smirk. "Good. I've already hired contractors to rip up the carpet the day after the wedding." I spent the next week moving my things into a cheap storage unit. I slept on an air mattress. I played the role of the defeated, discarded son perfectly. Chloe paraded around, measuring windows, picking out paint swatches, inviting her friends over to drink wine and brag about her new estate. But at night, when they were asleep, I wasn't packing. I was reading. I was reading a certified copy of my mother's last will and testament and the deed to the property, which I had retrieved from her old safety deposit box. My mother was a genius. She knew my father was weak. She knew he couldn't manage money, and she knew he would eventually be manipulated. Here's a little lesson in property law. When my mother passed, she didn't leave the house to my father in fee simple, meaning absolute ownership. She left him a defeasible life estate. The deed specifically stated that my father had the right to occupy the home, rent-free, for the duration of his life as a widower. However, there was a condition, a beautifully crafted ironclad clause. In the event that my husband remarries, his life estate shall immediately terminate, and full, unencumbered ownership of the property shall transfer instantly and entirely to my son, Ethan. My father was so focused on grieving, and then so focused on Chloe, that he never actually read the deed. He just assumed the house was his. He didn't realize that the very second he signed a new marriage license, he was no longer a homeowner. He would become a trespasser. To save money for a luxurious month-long honeymoon in the Maldives, Chloe insisted on having the wedding in the backyard of her house. They spent $50,000 of my dad's savings catering the event, buying flowers, and setting up a massive white tent on the lawn. I attended. I wore a black suit. I smiled for the photos. I watched them stand under the oak tree my mother planted. I watched the officiant pronounce them husband and wife. I watched them sign the marriage license on a little wooden table, making it legally binding. The trap had sprung. The invisible timer went off. The house was now 100% mine. The reception was loud, fueled by expensive champagne and a live band. Chloe was holding court, wearing a designer gown, telling her friends about her renovation plans. "The demo guys are coming on Monday," I heard her say. "We're gutting the entire East Wing." The band leader tapped the microphone. "And now, a toast from the groom's son, Ethan." The crowd clapped. Chloe forced a tight, fake smile. My dad looked nervous. I walked up to the microphone. I didn't have a champagne glass. I had a heavy manila envelope. "Thank you," I said, my voice echoing over the speakers. The backyard went quiet. I wanted to give my father and his new bride a wedding gift, something that honors the legacy of this house and the woman who bought it. I walked off the little stage. I walked straight up to Chloe and my father. I handed the envelope to Chloe. "Open it," I said softly. She ripped it open, expecting plane tickets or a check. She pulled out a stack of legal documents. On top was a 30-day notice to quit, stapled to a highlighted copy of the property deed. "What is this?" she demanded, her fake smile slipping. "It's an eviction notice," I said, loud enough for the front tables to hear. My dad froze. "Ethan, what kind of sick joke is this?" "No joke, Dad," I replied, looking him dead in the eye. "Mom knew you'd do something stupid. She left you a life estate, conditional on you remaining a widower. You just signed a marriage license 30 minutes ago, which means your legal right to reside on this property terminated exactly 30 minutes ago." Chloe snatched the deed. Her eyes scanned the highlighted text. She wasn't a lawyer, but she could read plain English. "Full ownership shall transfer instantly to my son." The blood drained from her face. She looked like she was going to faint. "This is my house," I said, my voice dropping to a cold, razor-sharp whisper. "You have 30 days to get your things out. The contractors you hired for Monday, cancel them, because if anyone touches a single wall in my house, I will have them arrested for vandalism." Chloe started screaming. She threw her glass of champagne at me, missing entirely and shattering it against the patio. She demanded my dad do something. She demanded he call the police. So he did. 2 officers arrived at a backyard wedding reception to find a bride crying hysterically and a groom hyperventilating. The police looked at the deed. They looked at the freshly signed marriage license. The older cop sighed, handed the papers back to my dad, and said, "Sir, it's his property. If he wants you out in 30 days, you have to leave. It's a civil matter." The wedding died right there. The guests awkwardly shuffled out. The band packed up early. Chloe and my dad didn't go to the Maldives for their honeymoon. They had to cancel the trip to use the money for a deposit on a tiny 2-bedroom apartment across town. I moved my stuff out of storage the next day. I put my mother's paintings back on the wall. I retrieved the height chart from the garage and nailed it back into the kitchen door frame. My dad called me crying a week later, begging for forgiveness, pleading to let them stay. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just mirrored his exact words from 2 months prior. "Dad," I said calmly, "I'm a man now. I need my space to start my life. It's my house. You need to respect that." And I hung up. Tonight the house is quiet. It smells like old wood and the rain hitting the large glass windows. There is no sage burning. There is no entitlement walking down the halls. There is just peace. because my mother wasn't just a lawyer, she was a guardian angel who left me a loaded gun in a manila envelope. And I didn't miss.